Well, we finally made it here. It's November 11th, 2023, the scheduled departure of the Inner Circle Trader from social media. If you could be so kind as to let me know, I'm checking Twitter right now. If you guys can hear me, just give me a 5 by 5. I'm using my Bose headset so that way I can talk with my hands today. Thank you, Lawrence. Just looking for a few more just to make sure everything has to be good on this one because this is my last one. London 2K. Noam, thank you very much. Thank you, Hank. El Gordo, thank you. All right, so you want to be a Forex trader. So you want to be a futures trader. What every new and aspiring Forex trader wants to know. In 2010, that's how I started this. For some of you, that's the genesis of Inner Circle Trader, but it actually was in the mid-90s. I had a presence on America Online, and many of you heard that story. And I thought many times over the coming months how I might reflect on how I would have done this last Twitter space and how I would have done it differently, or if I would have said this, or maybe said less of that. And I guess it's really one of those things where it needs to just come full circle. So while many of you know me as a Forex guru, or if you have a lot of glass awards, you call me a furu. the the idea of sharing and the enjoyment I've had doing all this has been, for lack of better terms, just a wonderful experience. Initially, it started with a social experiment to see if I could create another one of me. And while I have wonderfully profitable students, um, none of them actually had the same thing happen that I was trying to, kind of like recreate. So at this chapter of Inner Circle Trader on social media, that is, um, I just wanted to sit down with you for a little while, and I'm going to be doing this up till 10 o'clock, and then I'm going to close it. So there is no long one today. I pretty much said everything anyway, but I wanted to sit down and encourage you. I want to kind of like reflect on what it is that you have in your hands now and how you should respect it, how you should trust it and lean on it. Even in my absence, you have everything that you need. You don't need to subscribe to anything. You don't need to pay for anything. It's all in your hands right now. The problem with it is some of you are going to be extremely depressed because maybe this Twitter account has been a source of inspiration for you or a motivation for you. And for the ones that have been with me longer or have developed faster, not that that's always a good thing, but some of you absolutely have done very well in terms of growing in leaps and bounds, faster than some of my other students. That doesn't mean that if you haven't arrived yet at your understanding, that you won't ever get there. It just means that they did something more than you did, and your life circumstances probably dictated that you couldn't do as much as they did. And that's not a knock against your aptitude. It's not a knock against your will or passion to do it. It just means that life sometimes gets in the way. So if I can leave you today with a measure of encouragement, it's this: that everything that you would have been looking for as a trader, no matter how much time you spent seeking things, indicators, systems, courses, gurus, teachers, mentors, whatnot, I have given you everything that cuts through all of the fat and takes you right down to the bone. What holds it all together? You can have a lot of muscle, you can have a lot of strength in something, but if you don't have a good skeletal system, a framework, you can't do anything. Imagine that icon, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was huge, right? What happens if he didn't have a skeleton, right? It would be useless to him. It's a big pile of muscle, right? Useless. So what I've done is, over the years, I've placed in your hands a language, so that way you can see the marketplace from a framework stance. And then I've given you pieces, little cogs that work very, very well in the grand scheme of things. And by placing these small cogs, like specific PD arrays and very specific, straightforward, easy models, optimal trade entry, 2022 model, silver bullet, those things are very generic principles that can be treated just as they were taught to you. And you don't need to inflate them with other things. You don't have to add additional filters. You don't have to do anything to make it complicated. But for some of you, you want to go really deep. You want to go as deep as the rabbit hole will take you. And I appreciate that. That's how I'm of the same mindset. I'm not satisfied with just knowing. And I have to be careful speaking like this because for some of you that don't have this perspective or have this incentive behind your study, I'm trying not to inspire that, because if it's really not in your makeup as a person, then it's really not there and it's not necessary. Like, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know the daily high and the low. You don't have to know what the weekly high and low is going to be. You can trade in the middle and get a lot out of that. So there's going to be a lot of fever and rush to try to be the next big thing. And my hope is that for the folks that have found progress, don't quickly abandon what you have put work into. If I can go back in time and talk to myself as a younger man at 20, the first thing I would tell myself is, you're going to try to do too many things. They're going to waste your time. You're going to try to work on things and figure out things that aren't essential. They're not required to be consistently profitable. They're not going to help you actually. They're going to actually become a hindrance and a distraction. And they're going to be puzzles for you to try to figure out versus trying to figure out the problems that you have as the man. The person that is the trader, that is largely the issue. And I've mentioned this many times over the course of Twitter Spaces and even in the dry parts of my videos that people generally complain about. But they're the brass tacks. They're the things that really make you or break you. And it's hard to communicate that to someone that's brand new, because it doesn't feel like those things are pertinent to you when they are paramount to your proper development. If you look at the number of years I spent with you, it's about equivalent to what it took for me to get it all figured out and get myself out of my own way. Everything was scheduled. Everything was planned. Nothing was random. I've taken you through the exact process. Do you remember how fever pitched I was to always be tweeting? That was me in a characteristic form of how I was as a 20-year-old, trying to do everything, buy every book that I could get my hands on, deliver pizzas in addition to my job on the one day that I had off, just to get more money to go down to Trader's Library down in Columbia, Maryland, to waste more money. Because those books, the only thing they did was kept me hooked on the potential of figuring out the right guy or gal out there that's going to teach me the secrets to how these markets work. And I can promise you this, over 2,000 plus books, not one of them were able to do it. Not one of them were able to do that for me. Now, for some of you, you probably have heroes in your back pocket that you like to champion. And That's wonderful. I hold Larry Williams in high regard because he was the first person that had a great impact on me and helped me focus on things, whereas I didn't have a structure. Like I was just coming from Ken Roberts garbage, right? And it helped me think about things in a more structured manner, how to work from determining whether a market's really in a position to be traded or not. And you think about it for a second. How often have you looked at a marketplace and it might be your very favorite market? If you're a Forex trader, it might be your favorite Forex pair or your futures market or your commodity or your cryptocurrency. And it's moved into a consolidation for a prolonged period of time. And you just don't have the patience to hold on to it. To sit on the sidelines, that is, and have patience, holding on to patience, waiting for a viable setup. So you go in and you start doing things recklessly because, you know, you're looking at this stuff. So therefore, you don't want to be wasting your time. You might get something out of it. Even if you made $100, it's worth your time being in front of the charts, right? And I did a lot of those things when I was younger. And Larry Williams was the first one to help inspire me to focus on a market that was more prone to trade in a manner that would be advantageous. Okay. You don't want to be in a range bound market. Now, I have since learned, obviously, and you've learned as well from me, the ideas of trading inside of a small ranging market. It's possible. You don't need a lot. I taught you how you can take 5 handles out of the index futures and carve out an entire career on that and never need to move beyond that. You don't need to be a 20R trader, a 50R trader, a 200R trader that never really does it. Instagram. So being content with enough is important. And I guess in a lot of ways you can look at, what I've shared on my YouTube channel is probably in by many definitions overkill. And because it's a lot of videos and it's basically a daunting task for someone that's highly critical, they're going, oh, he's overcomplicating it. There's no overcomplication. It's me teaching in great detail why something's going to repeat. Now, I don't have the faith in something because I see it work a few times and not really understand the mechanics behind it. I have to I have to understand what it is that makes this thing work. Now, I'm not a mechanic. Okay, I'm not very handy with my hands, but I understand how cars work. I understand a combustion engine. I know the technological advances that we've had and the things that we used to have, like carburetors and things like that. They've evolved. Now, because I understand how they work, doesn't mean I can repair them or fix them. But I had to satisfy that internal desire to know what it is. And as a child, everything that I ever had, I took apart. Now, sometimes I couldn't put them back together, but I had to know what was inside. Like what's inside of this thing, what makes it move and what makes it tick. And I've always been inquisitive. And I think that the Lord gave me that, and coupled with what everybody else would say is a mental illness and an impediment, but obsessively compulsiveness, allowed me to fuel that insatiable desire to keep digging in to understanding what makes these candlesticks, and back then it was open, high, low, and closed bars, perform a specific manner, in a manner that repeats, in a manner that can be exploited, and also to reveal something that's always been there underneath your nose and everyone else's nose, but we've been hearing for decades, and as long as the market's been around, that price is random, price is unknowable. No one can be consistently accurate in predicting or timing the marketplace. And obviously, majority of you now are part of the, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Gentle Ladies, because you can do the same thing now. You're able to time the market in lower time frames that defy all logic, even from the Goldman Sachs boys. Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel good to be a part of this? To have learned something that even the big shots that go on CNBC, they try to tell you this stuff, that you can't time the market. You can't outperform the S&P. Are you freaking crazy? Seriously? What's the average return on the S&P annually? It's trash. I'm making trades with 20% per trade. So how long do I have to prove that any one of us, or anyone that's willing to sit down and learn this pyramid with proper risk management, using a real stop loss, I don't need to sit there and work all year long to make industry standard high watermark return. Dude, that's just like that's a morning scalp. Like that's not something that we're sweating that. We're not sweating that. Now, in their defense, obviously, they're speaking from a position where they're many times controlling millions of dollars, maybe even $1 billion, and you just can't move a lot of that type of size on very small little fluctuations. And I grant them that, okay? But when they themselves like to spit in our direction and say that there really isn't any edge there, when there is no sharper edge in this industry than the one that we're wielding every day, it's there. The precision is there. It's undeniable. You've seen copious examples of beginning to end executions, both in demo for a longest of time, and this year you saw it with real money. You cannot deny that. Now, for some of you, that still isn't enough because you can't do it right now. And I want to encourage you, even though I'm stepping away from social media, don't abandon your progress. What do I mean by that? Well, what's going to happen, and this is exactly what's going to happen, there's going to be people that have studied what I've taught, and they themselves are going to be the one that rebrand it, like we've watched many times over the course of the last 12 years or so, 13 years now, since I came out on Baby Pips and started teaching things that nobody else was teaching. And that $5 million bounty is still there. Not one person came forward with proof or evidence that any of the things that I've presented to the community is rebranded of anything. Because if it was, somebody else would be out there doing that stuff just like you see me executing. And what do you see as a common denominator when anybody sees my examples? This has to be delayed data. That's their only excuse. It has to be delayed data. Or it's demo. And then when it's a live account, well, it's an AMP demo account. But when they look at how AMP goes on to TradingView with a demo, which I didn't even know they had, you can see it clearly is nothing says AMP live there. It's some kind of series of letters and numbers and gobbledygook. So we've canceled every argument. We've literally laid to waste every reason why you shouldn't at least do your own investigation on the concepts. I've always openly challenged all of you, and I'm so proud of you that have done it because you pushed through all the noise and the chaff and the distractions because many of them are marketers, and I get it, man. I get it. You can't trade well. Your profitability as a trader is not there yet, but you have something that you're marketing, and you want to make money. You have an entrepreneurial spirit. I get that. I understand that. But at some point, folks like you are going to have to prove that you can do what you're claiming and not talk about someone else to try to rise to the occasion. And I don't want any of you to become so good at this that you become toxic and arrogant. For most part, that's what you think I am. And I want to tip my hand to you and kind of show you really what this is all about. Because I was never going to do any kind of marketing, I didn't want to do any kind of investment into Facebook because I think Facebook is a joke. I didn't want to invest in advertising on any other platforms, and they'll go without being named. I needed to create a stir. Pardon me if you hear me drinking my cocoa, but we had our first frost, and this is like an annual thing for me. So if you hear me slightly slurp it, just pardon me, okay? But I wanted to create a measure of interest. And when you go to a rodeo, okay, when you go to a rodeo, or you go to a circus. What do you remember most? The clowns. As much as you probably don't like clowns, because that's a real thing, I came out on Baby Pips and presented myself just as that. I completely disarmed everybody. What are they going to say about me? I'm going to teach you through a demo. There's nothing they can argue about. But I wanted to show that I could do something wearing a mask that nobody else would be able to replicate. And I would over deliver an education that would lead to something that was useful and profitable. Imagine that as a marketing strategy. No one else would have done it. But look how sticky I was. Highest numbered views on threads over there on Baby Pips still today. And I don't have any content in there. What I think you don't realize is when I was a young boy, I was fascinated with magic, sleight of hand, card tricks, coin tricks, and things like that. And David Copperfield was a huge inspiration to me, and I can't wait until February because he's supposed to be making the moon disappear, which is going to be equivalent to what he did with the Statue of Liberty, I'm sure. It's just perception. But that first moment of watching his annual magic presentation on CBS was like a huge milestone each year for me because I wanted to be like him. Like I wanted to be up there and dazzle the people that would watch him. Because when he would do something, that line between reality and wow, what is going on here? Like this is something that shouldn't be possible. I loved that moment of astonishment. And over the years, I invested money in learning and time in studying that craft of magic. And I got really good at it. And then one of the guys I learned from, his name is Paul Harris. Now, if you looked at this guy, you would not be impressed with him at all. He doesn't have any kind of features that would say, "Wow, he's charming," or that he is really just an average-looking guy. Okay, slightly balding, a poorly maintained mustache, and just nothing really to look at. But sharp as a tack. And his style, I kind of took that as a guru online. And what do I mean by that? His strategy was many times to entertain himself, really. And if you could probably find his interview, maybe not. If I can find it, I'll share a link on Twitter before I go. But for some of you, this probably means nothing to you. But I want you to understand who I am, where all this stuff came from, what created this personality that I presented to all of you, and the building blocks that created it. Because it's not me copying somebody else's trading style. It's me as a young boy growing up and having all of my influences become a part of what you're seeing. Like you remember the 80s cartoon Voltron? Loved it. I loved it. Before school, I'd watch it, and you had these tigers that would come together, and they would make this Megazord, right? There it is, boom. Well, all of these people, like Paul Harris, Jeff McBride, Larry Williams, um, martial arts instructors, all these influences over the course of my life, all had little parts and roles to play to be who I am. And the arrogance aspect that many of you don't like about me, that's really not me. And I've told you very candidly when I was younger that was a genuine thing about me because I was new money, and new money just acts like new money. And it's an ugly thing. But I got humbled. And it might not sound like I'm humbled, but I use this as a means of engaging the audience. And what did Paul Harris do as a magician? He would win the crowd over with his talent and his cordialness, his politeness. And then he would flip it up and become this jerk, this person that really nobody would want to listen to. And then he would try to win them back over. As much as that may sound like, why would you want to do that? It made sense to me. That made sense to me because who do you really want to be paying attention to? You want to see the guy that was taunting everybody to get knocked out. You ever see that MMA video? The fighter, he's out there, he's doing all these breakdancing moves, and all of a sudden, boom, Sleepville. Well, that's what everybody wants to see. So if I'm not going to market myself and pay for advertising, and I already hook the people that already see value in what I'm teaching, how do I get the rest of the people? I got to create some kind of stickiness. So I'm going to be that arrogant clown that represents himself with a demo because everybody wants to see that guy get wrecked. So they'll talk and they'll talk and they'll talk to their friends and they say, "Go look at this guy here, look at this." Yeah, wonderful. And they all advertised for me for free. You all worked for me for free, doing all those things. You allowed all these well-rounded students that I have now to find me, and I never had to put a dime behind any of it. Everything was scheduled. The real me, the real me, that's who's talking to you right now. I have gone through the ringer through these markets and life with a woman that was really not wanting to be with me, but wanted the money I had. And I had to do a lot of things to hide from her and her ex-husband now. And it's unfortunate, but I own that. It's something I made the mistake of doing something as a young man, and I own it. But some of you want to have this position of notoriety, and you want it to fill a void. You want it to fill some kind of vacuum space that your own life can't fill. And you're thinking that if you become popular in trading, or if you start teaching, or if you're giving out signals and such, and I hope all of you are successful at it. I genuinely, absolutely, wholeheartedly want all of you, even the people that take shots at me, trolls and whatnot. I want all of you to succeed. I've had a lot of fun being an inner circle trader. I've had so much fun. And some of you have taken it personal, but I've never meant anything personal. It's always been shop talk. That's all it is. I can take a good ribbing. Look at how I go back and forth with Patrick Whelan. I don't see him as a threat, and I know he doesn't see me as a threat. But it's all online banter. It's fun. But I hope that the skill set that you acquired from me and learning how to do this doesn't turn you into what I was as a 20-year-old, which was an arrogant so-and-so. And there was days where I didn't even have the ability to tolerate myself. I would say or think certain things and think to myself, wow, that's horrible. Where'd that come from? Well, I know now where it came from, but I try to keep myself from that kind of stuff as much as I can. And admittedly, when I'm on social media, especially Twitter, I have a tendency to want to revert back to how I was as a 20-year-old, which is, in my opinion, going backwards. It's devolving. I don't want to go backwards. And while I can have fun in a playful manner with certain individuals, sometimes context is lost. Sometimes sarcasm is lost in the delivery of a tweet or something I may have said in a tongue-in-cheek remark. And sometimes language is an issue because some of you may not understand a obvious, glaring sarcasm that would be understood from the United States perspective. And then for someone of foreign persuasion may hear me say something and there's a disconnect. Or it may come across as arrogance when really arrogance wasn't even the delivery at the time. But that whole side of me was instrumented and originated from Paul Harris, who was a magician that really didn't become a big thing, but a lot of his effects and sleights and stuff that I learned, his style made sense to me because what was I? I was a young man and I wanted to be able to fool the guys that were acting like they were the ones that should be paid the most attention to in the room. So, do you remember the discussion I had a couple years ago? I said that you want to see who in the room's the loudest, and you want to be the one they don't see coming. I always sit in the room with the corner behind me because I want to have the lay of the land. I want to see who's out there. Who's the one that's going to probably be a problem for me tonight if there's going to be alcohol in the room. I want to size them up, find their weaknesses, see what they think their strengths are, and who's their friends in the room. I've lived my life that way. I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood that, you know, I couldn't run. I didn't have the stamina to run, so I had to learn how to fight. So my mindset has always been I have to be prepared for anything that's adversarial. And that's why my perspective on the marketplace is always that of like war or an action movie, something to that effect. And it also serves a very good purpose for the young men because that's how they think too. Rambo, Chuck Norris, you know, um, you name it, whoever you want to put in that action film role. So it kind of allows that human mind to be blurring the line of, okay, yeah, I'm learning something very, very dry, very, very technical, very, very boring in the beginning. But if it can be laced with, hey, you do this, you're going to be a Chuck Norris, you're going to be, a Bruce Lee, you're going to be some kind of commando GI Joe that can pull off something nobody else can do. And young men, like I was, you know, we let our minds drift to those things. Women, it's always been a hard sell for them. And that's why in the beginning, I didn't have a whole lot of women that were students. The one that comes to mind is Okie Dame. I'm not even sure if she's still around or not, but she was on Baby Pips. It's one of my core students in the beginning, but I'm not sure what she's even doing anymore today, if she's even trading. If you're listening, I hope you're well. But yeah, I'm talking about online students, because I obviously had women as students prior to being on Baby Pips. But all these stepping stones of becoming a human being that has been influenced by other people, not necessarily traders, not necessarily, good role models. I used all of that to create this online persona as of inner circle trader, just like wrestling. You know, um, when you hear me rant, what you're hearing is how I used to practice when I was working out and was a larger guy, 18 years old. I wanted to be a wrestler. I mean, I have yearbooks that you can see all my friends were like, don't wrestle this one, or they all knew that was my aspiration. I wanted to be a wrestler, and I would practice doing shoots and promos. Like I could do verbatim just about every Macho Man, Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan promo that you can pretty much get almost everything that they're saying. I'll say it just verbatim, just like that, down to the flicking of his sunglasses and flicking it away, all of that. Even the one where he did the promo with Mean Gene Oakland, where he had the creamers, the coffee creamers, the cream of the crop. I practiced that so many times when I was in high school because I knew what? Nobody cares about the wrestling. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about that stuff. If you've ever been to a live wrestling event, it's actually boring. But when you watch on TV, they add additional sound of the audience cheering. That's fake. And you're hearing that commentary. What's the commentary? It's to make you like, it's to influence your interest. Oh, look at this, because they know that you have a team mentality. So as a influencer, I already knew that there's a lot of people out here in this industry that are getting credit for things that don't really deserve it because they're not doing anything. They don't even prove they can trade. They can't even show you an execution from beginning to end. Not just once, but they're the most opinionated people. So I wanted to come out and have a very polarizing, very polarizing perspective placed on me. And Tom Hugard is he's been public about how you ever hear this guy inner circle? He never puts the trader at the end of it. I think it's a subliminal knock against me because he thinks I'm just a demo trader. I don't think that. I'm just being funny now. But he said that this guy he's very polarizing. He's like Moses, and I didn't take that as I'm trying to be Moses or that I'm equivalent to Moses, but he nailed it because that's exactly what I have tried to do. So that way it creates discussion. There's going to be people that have learned from me, that have real tangible experience that they can say, this works in my hands. I know it works. I have proof of it. I don't need to see ICT do it, but yet ICT does it every single week. So what is that doing? It's canceling the people that's going to say, but you never see him do what? Trade with a live count? You saw that. Call the high and low of the week? You saw that. Trade the high of the day, low of the day, trade low, short, and then go long the same day. Trade without a bias, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, on every single turning point. Yeah, you all saw that. But that won't matter because just like when you go to watch a wrestling match, without all the fanfare around it, without the influencing and commentary, the team aspect of being in the crowd, you're a John Cena fan. Oh, you're an Undertaker fan. You know, that type of thing. It doesn't make it fun unless you have that interaction. So I had to create this polarizing personality that many times I was shocked at where like I don't have a script. Okay, unless I'm waving the paper, like when I'm talking about something that is an itinerary that I have to get through. And it was usually the very long, long, long Twitter spaces. But right now I have nothing. I'm talking with my hands right now if you're watching me. I was shocked at where this stuff comes from. And that wit comes from practicing being like all of the wrestlers that I looked up to as a child, even the ones that I didn't like Ric Flair. I couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand. He used to make me cry as a kid because he would he would pin all of my favorites by pulling their trunks and putting his legs up on the ropes. And it would make me angry. And I would leave the house with the chip on my shoulder and go talk to my friends about something. And because I'm angry about that, I would start an argument with them just because I wanted to vent. So I was thinking to myself, I'm not the only one that thinks like this. This is human nature. Like this is human nature. So if I can create this opportunity for people to talk about me and what I'm doing and how I'm basically trying to ridicule everything else in the industry, what's that going to do? It's going to create waves, and it's going to be out there, and people are going to hear about it. And somebody's going to want to come over here and say, hey,